Well, Diesel seems to have gotten a taste of celebrity. No, I guess now he wants down. He's been following me around for like, I don't know, half an hour waiting for me to do some videoing, I guess. Anyway, yeah, in this segment we're going to put the front pieces and the front and the back together, and also do the assembly of the double pull zipper and that whole assembly with the bottom gusset. So anyway, that is what we are going to do on this segment. We have one more, and I think that is going to wrap the whole thing up. So for now, I guess this is goodbye from Diesel anyway. And enjoy the next segment. Thanks. So now I have this piece all done, my front flap, got my zippers in. Now it's time to assemble the top band. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just take this and I'm going to clip it back so that it's out of the way. I'm going to take my lining piece. Now, of course, this is right side up. This is lining behind here. And I'm going to slide this underneath, and I'm going to just make sure that I'm aligned over here. And I can actually just pin this. Or you can clip it, whatever works best. And again, over on this side, I'm just going to match those corners. So there. Now I'm just going to do a narrow hem basting stitch, just to hold those pieces together. I have my top band is just basted on there right now, just to hold those zippers in place and everything. So now I'm going to do my contrast. That will be up here. I'm going to sew that on as well. So I'm just going to have to kind of tuck it in, or if you want to pull this down further, you can, whatever works. But I'm just going to clip this on. Just clip it in place, and I'm going to go ahead and do a 3/8 inch seam across here. Normally, I would lift this up. I'll fold that and press the back of it. And I would normally top stitch that right away, but I'm just going to wait because I have some other top stitching to do as well. And hopefully, if the steps all work out, I don't have to switch my thread out. So that's the reason why I'm not doing my top stitching, because I have to do the thread changes every time. So, okay, so I promise I'll eventually stop whining. It may not be till the end of this video series, but I will quit whining about thread changes. I just decided I would go ahead and do the top stitching here. I need to just do kind of a stay stitch around here too, but before I do that, I've got all of this extra with my zippers that I'm going to need to cut back. So I'm just going to cut it back kind of even with my seam allowance. There we go. So there's that. So if you were going to put the grommets in, which I'm not going to, you will have marked already your holes up here on your top band. So if you're going to do that, use the manufacturer's directions and install your grommets where they're supposed to go. Like I said, I'm not going to be doing that, so I won't be showing you that. So this is kind of where things get a little bit different than traditional or normal bag making, I guess. This is where it was different from anything that I had done before. Here we have that inside zipper pocket. Remember this one? And the slip pocket. So I have this all assembled. And normally we do right sides together and then turn things around. The way that this is going, we're not going to. So I'm taking this piece and I'm going to lay my front flap and my zippered flap over top of it. So what's going to happen once this is sewn together is this opens up, and inside is our zipper pocket and our slip pocket. So that's what this is going to be. This is how this works. So I'm just going to flip this over, make sure that everything is nice and lined up and centered the best that we can, and I'm going to clip all the way around. So there's a couple things I need to clarify before we go further. Yes, I clipped all the way around. I'm not going to be sewing across the bottom here. I'm just going to be doing a basting stitch all the way around. I want to get this out of the way. So what I choose to do is just to kind of fold it and tuck it in so that it's out of the way. Now, pattern pieces don't always fit together perfectly, especially when you have a bunch of piecing done. Like the front here, I've got seam allowances, that kind of thing. Maybe I didn't get everything just perfect. So I hope you can see that. So not everything lines up. It's not like every pattern piece is going to sit exactly perfect. Probably found that with other patterns as well. It's not the pattern pieces, it's our sewing, just to be clear. So what I do is I just try and fit it in the best that I can. Try and center it and try and get things looking as nice as I can. As long as I have enough of a seam allowance here, I'm going to be doing 3/8 eventually, not right now. This time I'm just going to catch this. So I'm going to do enough of a seam allowance that all of my layers are together. But when I actually go and do the final sewing and the binding, it's going to catch in there. I've got a 3/8 inch seam that I'm going to be using. So yeah, that's basically what I wanted to clarify there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do about an 1/8 of an inch. Might have to do just a little bit more to catch that around this corner and come all the way around. So now I have mine base stitched all the way around. I did trim a little, I trimmed this off a little early. That is the next step, is to, your little gussets will be sticking out a little bit. Trim those nice and flush with the rest of it. And also you can trim off the edge of your zipper if you want, or if there's extra hanging over the bottom. And I'll just show you. Yeah, I missed a little bit up here. I went from the other side because it's a little easier, so I didn't see this. I'm okay with it. We don't have to turn anything, so there won't be stress put on there. And again, like I said, later on in one of the next steps, there'll be another seam allowance that goes around here, so it will catch everything. But for now, at least it holds everything in place. Now, I'm going to just zip these up a little bit. And I'm going to put on my bottom, my bottom band. I had a memory lapse there again. So yeah, so I'm going to put this bottom band on, going to turn it, and I'm going to top stitch it as well. This will put my machine through a little bit because we're going through quite a few layers. And plus vinyl, and then when I top stitch, I'll be going through an extra layer of vinyl. So let's see how we go with that. Okay, so I have my bottom band put on, and I'm going to top stitch it after. I have some other assembly to do, and then I'm going to do all of the top stitching. Yeah, I guess I really need to stop saying what I'm not going to do because I end up doing it anyway. So yeah, I've got my top stitching done here. So again, we're going to kind of deviate from the way that we normally do bags, or what we're used to with doing bags. These are my two inside lining pieces. I'm going to flip these over so that it's wrong side up. Then I'm going to take this front piece, I'm going to lay it over. So I'm going to have wrong sides together. So this forms the inside of that double zippered pocket. And this one is going to be the other side of my back. So again, we don't do the seam allowance and then turn them through. That's why we do the binding. The binding is actually going to finish the raw edges on both of these. So I'm going to make sure that I have this out of the way, and I'm going to do a 1/8 inch seam allowance all the way around, just a basting stitch to hold those two pieces together. No, I was right the first time. We're going to do a 1/4 inch basting stitch all the way around everything. So I have my two pieces. I've got them basted with the other, got all my pieces together. Now what I'm noticing, again, because things aren't always perfect, is I have some extra kind of on the outside here. I'm happy with the curves and everything of my vinyl, and especially on the back one here. I'm going to just trim the extra off. So anything that doesn't line up with my vinyl, I'm just going to go around and I'm just going to trim that off, because it'll give me an easier edge to bind later on. Now, having said that, for example here, I can kind of see that my fabric is actually, it's curved in just a little bit. And that could be for all kinds of reasons. For my seam allowances and putting my zippers in, maybe just things just didn't sit right. Now, I'm not going to go in there and I'm not going to cut this off, because it looks to me like actually my fabric is a little bit short here. So I'm going to leave that, because that's a nice edge. I'm not cutting off just to cut off. I'm cutting off just to make my shape even all the way around. Same with at the top here. I would probably trim just a little bit off, but I want to make sure that if my vinyl is say it was curved here quite a bit, that I'm not cutting with that curve, because I want to stay with a straight line. And actually, while we're doing this, I'm just going to double check here. If I put my ruler up against my vinyl, well, it's really hard to tell. It's hard to tell from your point of view with the camera here, but I think actually my vinyl is the proper one, so I probably will just trim that little bit off there. Now, as far as zippers go, last but not least, we have the double pull zipper. So I make my own again. They're so much cheaper than buying them. And all I need is, now it calls for 20 inch, so I cut 21 inches, because again, I take my 1/4 inch and I'd always rather have too much than too little. So this is really as simple as, I don't know how quickly this is going to go. Maybe I'll be lucky on this one too. There we go. Okay, so that's one, and that one looks like it's going to be pretty even. So I'm going to put that one in a little ways. Make sure that I've got the same, that I'm going to be facing upward. Do the other side. That one started. Oh. There we go. Okay, so now I've got my double zippers put in here, and my double slider. So now these ones will go like that, and they will zip up in the middle together. And that's exactly what I want. So now I'm ready to work on my zipper, my double zipper. So now I have my zipper panel. This is my lining piece, and I'm going to take my zip and I'm going to lay it over top. Now I can be hanging over the edge a little bit on both sides. It's no problem. And I'm just going to clip this all together, or pin it all together all the way along, and I'm going to baste it at 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to, and I'll do each one. I won't be doing my top, and this time I actually do mean I won't be doing my top stitching right away. Instead of doing one side, top stitching, doing the other side, and then top stitching it, I'll be doing each side and then doing my top stitching on both sides. So, so right now I'm just going to go ahead and pin this together, and I'm going to do my basting stitch all along at 1/8 of an inch. So now I have my zipper just basted onto my lining, face up, and I'm going to take my, this is my outside zipper panel, and I'm going to place this over here, and I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way along. So again, I can just pin or clip this, doesn't matter how I do it. And now I'm not going to baste, I'm actually going to use a proper stitch, and I'm just going to do the whole thing all the way down. So now I have 1/2 of this done, and I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do the other half, and then I'm going to top stitch both sides. Okay, so this is my double zipper, double pull zipper, all assembled. Now in her instructions, Celine has a base stitch on each edge. I am going to do that, but again, not quite yet. We're going to do the rest of it. It forms a big loop, and then I'm going to go around and do the whole thing. And there is a very good reason why, and that will I'll show you that when we get to it, I guess. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take the lining. This is the bottom gusset. So we have our bottom gusset lining. Going to put that on the bottom with the right side up. Then the right side up of my zipper. And then I'm going to take the bottom gusset outside and put that right side together. I'm going to do a seam allowance here. Just going to sew this together. I'm also, now this is going to be a little bit, the zipper is going to be a little bit longer, but I'm going to do the same thing over on the other edge. I just have to end up kind of folding it back a little bit. But I'm going to do this one first, and I'm going to pull this over, press, do what I need to do. I'll top stitch this as well. Then we'll do the other side. Okay, so I have half of this on. I've got my lining, and I've got my other, the outside vinyl. Now I'm going to put these together, but this one has to come around from the other side. So I'm going to line all of this up again and do this seam across here. Then I'm going to press it, and then I'll do my top stitching. So I haven't done my top stitching yet, but I'm going to do that along here on both sides. But this is what we end up with. So we have kind of a big circle here, zipper on the top, and I have my vinyl on the bottom. What I'm going to do, first I'm going to do my top stitching. Then I'm going to, at a 1/4 inch, I'm going to do a seam allowance, or a basting stitch at a 1/4 inch. Now here, you can see this. My vinyl sticks out a little bit further. I actually want to grab, I don't want to trim my vinyl. I've gotten this a little bit too narrow. Not the end of the world. I'm just going to make an allowance for it, and I'm going to use my seam allowance. I'm going to try I may start back here and go a 1/4 inch and just keep going, and just try to even that out. So again, it's not the end of the world if I make the allowance for it now. So what I've done here is I've actually used my ruler and I've measured a 1/4 inch in. This is where I've got that little jog, and I'm going to come down here. I want to just keep a straight line, and I want to blend that little, I don't know, I'm not exactly sure what I did there, and I can either fret and stew and wonder what I did, or I can just go ahead and fix it. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm lining this up so that I've got a 1/4 inch, down here, and I'm going up to a 1/4 inch over here. So I'm just going to, I drew a line all the way down. Now, when we get to the assembly, actually sewing this into the bag, you're going to understand a little bit better why I'm being so picky on this. I have that on both sides. Just on the one, this side seems to be fine. I'm going to be doing sewing a 1/4 inch basting stitch all the way along. In the instructions, she does it for the zipper side. I do it for both to keep everything together. And there is a good reason for it, because when I do some clipping later on, that will be in the next segment. I think this is going to be it for this segment. We'll get this far. So I'm just going to go ahead and do my stitching, my 1/4 inch basting stitch all the way around, so that on both sides, so that this whole thing is being held together. So that's what I'm going to do. So I have all of my basting stitch. I've done a nice straight stitch, straightened out this edge, so I'll be able to use this as a guide instead of trying to follow my fabric and getting a crooked seam. One of the things, like in explaining why I'm so picky about some stuff and maybe not so much about other things, is it going to show? That's what I think about. This bag, there's a lot to it. We've spent a lot of time and effort making sure that things are looking nice, and that the end product, people are going to go, wow, you made that? Like, that is absolutely amazing. We want that wow factor. And if we don't pay attention to the little things on such a detailed bag, I personally think that you end up losing that wow factor, because all of a sudden they start looking at it and it's like, oh, well, you know, if it's just, for me, it's those little details that make it. So that's who I am. That's how I like to work. Again, I'm not telling you that's what you need to do. That's what works for me. And yeah, so you can take the advice that I give. It's free advice, and we all know how much that's worth. So anyway, I hope you've been enjoying it so far, and I'll talk to you later.